Okay, so hello, Borderline Podcast Disordarians. How are you doing? I hope you had a nice weekend. I hope you had a good week last week, and I hope you're looking forward to whatever you got going on this week. And little, I guess, update from me. Um, Nothing's changed. Nothing much anyway. I've been, and I think I will at the moment when you will see this. I've just got out of my weekly therapy appointment, and look, I think it's definitely been a challenging week. It's been a challenging. I think it's been a challenging month with a lot of personal stuff going on, and I think radical acceptance was very important. Also, i've um, I found myself in situations where I had to do a few pros and cons, and the um, the main thing that I had to work on in the last couple of weeks because of again some personal things I can't or I won't talk about just yet. I had to basically try and do a lot of like solution finding, trying to find ways to work out with the things that I've got and the things that I have control over. And I think it's worked out okay. I feel much better. I feel like it was a good reminder because at times in the last week or so, I just felt like, oh, okay, I'm in control. I there are things I can change and there are things that I can basically make go my way, although some other things are completely not, which is very frustrating. But I can't do anything about it, and it's annoying, and it's painful. But yeah, I have no choice almost, and so that's what I had to work with, or like what I had to work around in the past week, and you will be next week. There is very, I think it's a brilliant episode that's going to come out on the 10th of September, which is the Suicide Awareness Day. I don't know if it's national or international, but I think it's either way. And the interview, you'll obviously, I'm not going to spoil all the details, and I'm not going to spoil it for you completely. I'm just going to say that it's going to be a good one. It's going to be, and it's been a great conversation that I was lucky enough to have, and I'm sure you will enjoy it at least as much as I did. Maybe not. Maybe somehow near where I did. But for this week, you will hear my conversation with a fellow comedian. I mean, I say fellow, but I think is much better, or at least anyway. I love his humor, and I think he's a great comedian. Rob Moriarty. He's based in London, and I've met him. I think in the first, I don't know, maybe first few weeks of being in London. He's like everywhere, all the time almost, and he's doing okay. He's doing really well, and comedy wise, you'll hear about some struggles and some issues that or some things that he's got to work through, for the our conversation. But comedy wise, he's doing really well. He's also got his own podcast, so make sure you check that out if you're interested in hearing more from him, about him, or I don't know how else to say it. But I think that's pretty much everything that I had to share with you this week, or for now. And I hope you enjoy the conversation with Rob, and I'll catch you before we part ways for the week. So yeah, enjoy the episode. Rob, hello. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, thanks for having me, bro.
Have you been? What have you been up to?
Oh, not much, man. Not much. I was I didn't get home till like 2 last night, so I'm tired, but apart from that, I'm all right. Yeah, yeah. I'm not too bad.
You're doing a lot of gigs during the summer, or what's it like for you?
Yeah, yeah, sort of. Yeah, I'm going to Ireland on Tuesday for a week, to do some shows there, and then back here, and then back to Ireland. I think in August again, and I might go to Berlin then for a few days, and um, yeah, I'm not going to the Fringe or anything. So, but and then other than that, I'll just be here and doing the usual. Yeah, so
What's it like? Because I've seen you. I think you're going to Ireland quite often now.
yeah, yeah.
Well, how do you find it? Was it like always this? I guess not easy, but were you always like this like busy in Ireland, or is it like a newer thing?
It's more of a newer thing. I think that so I started in Ireland, but I was only there for like 5 months, and then COVID happened. So then I left Ireland to um go to Germany because I heard that there was the scene was not really the COVID lockdown and restrictions and stuff weren't as strict in Germany. So I moved there. So I stayed there then for most of COVID, doing gigs, and then I moved uh, here. But it's only recently I guess I've gotten to a position where I'm able to go back to Ireland and make money, so that it's actually worth going back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of money. I mean, it's just enough to you know make maybe like a few £100, and then also see my family and friends and stuff. So
Well,
uh,
so when you went to Berlin
yeah,
to do comedy there, like is that the reason why? So basically, it was because of the lockdown restrictions.
yeah,
Did you have
yes,
any friends there? Did you?
no. So COVID happened, and then it was like maybe 2 or 3 months into COVID, and I was just fucking losing my mind, and I was like, I need to do something, or else, yeah, I was just losing my mind. So I heard that there was some Irish guy that I'd never met, and he was in Prague, and I Facebook messaged him being like, "Oh, I heard you're in Prague, and you're doing comedy in Prague," and he was like, "Yeah, I'm in Prague, but I think Berlin's better." So then I just went fuck it, and then I moved to Berlin. I had a friend that was living there that I'd known since maybe I was like 16. So then I just moved there, so I had him there, which was better than having no one, I guess, and then yeah, I stayed there, and the scene was great, and it's exploded even since I've left, and even from when I was there to when I left, it exploded. Like, it was huge. There's a huge English speaking scene there, and yeah, like, you could gig, every night, once or twice, 2 or 3 times a night during COVID, but you had to get like tested every day. You had to have a negative test. So they had these like testing centers on the street where you could get tests for free, and yeah, man, I guess it saved me, like, because if I couldn't do stand up during the pandemic, I would have, yeah, I don't know.
No
So,
way.
yeah.
Well, and then when did you decide to move to London?
So so maybe like 2022. Do you know Anno Gomez, Australian
Yes.
guy?
Yeah.
So we met in Berlin, and we became good friends in Berlin, and then he moved to London, and I was always kind of planning on moving at some point, but I guess he was kind of like the catalyst. He's like, "Oh, I'm going, so why don't you come?" And then my friend Mike Rice, he was here, and obviously he was doing very well, and he was saying that I should make the move here if I wanted to sort of get to the, get to the next level, and then so then yeah, how fuck did I go? And then I didn't have any money to do it, because I really didn't work for like for like most of COVID. I mean, I was I had like social welfare and stuff saved up. And then in Berlin I was doing like video editing for I say editing, I was just subtitling people's social media clips. So I was making money doing that, and a tiny bit of money from doing that. But I didn't have enough money to go. And then also when you're in Berlin, it's such a small scene that like you kind of achieve everything that can be achieved in London, or sorry, in Berlin. Uh, like you do all the clubs and you do whatever, and then there's nothing really else to accomplish. Like you can get onto like Germany Comedy Central if you speak German, but I had no intentions of learning German. And so then yeah, and then I managed to I won this competition there, and the prize was like it was a Berlin New Stand Up Award. I was like, right, if I can win this, then I'll have enough money to go to London. So I won that competition. I got the money, and then I had enough money to fly here, and then I moved in with Anno Gomez into an absolute crack den in Stratford, and it was horrendous. And I remember the day it was like, because Berlin, it was so it was such a comfortable existence, because I don't know if you've been to Berlin, but like it's a great city, and it's so laid back, and it was just so easy to get spots, and it's such a small scene that you know all the comedians, so it felt like a family. It was really nice, and uh, and then there was no real pressure because you knew all the people who book shows, and if you bombed, like I got to a point where, and this isn't, I'm not trying to fucking blow smoke up my own ass, but everyone knows that you can do well, so even if you bomb, they're just going to book you anyway because they're your friend, and like there was just no stakes, and there was no pressure to do well. So I was like, no, fuck it, I need to. So I then I came here, and I remember the first day I got here, I think I landed at like 7 a.m. and I got to this like I said, crack den in Stratford, and then I got into the house, and I went into my room. It was this tiny room, and there was no furniture in the room, and I I put my like suitcase on the ground, and then I used like my suitcase as a pillow, and then my thing, and I tried to sleep for like an hour or two, and I couldn't. So then I went down to like Argos that was nearby, and I bought like one of those, like those like fold out like beds that you'd see like in a emergency accommodation or something.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
and I bought one of them, and I remember just like I had to like carry that on my shoulder for like 20 minutes. And I remember just thinking like, what the fuck have I done? Like, this is
Oh
absolutely,
my god.
yeah, I was like, this is going to suck. And yeah, it was, yeah, I fucking hated it here for like, yeah. So like, I hated it so much that I stayed here. I moved here in like May of 2022. I stayed here for 4 months, and I ran out of money, and I couldn't really get gigs, and I just fucking hated it. So I was just doing like music open mics, and I was starting to maybe do one or two, nice shows here and there, but like overall it was just horrible. So then I moved back to Ireland for 2 months, because I missed home, and I missed all like my loved ones and stuff. And I moved back to Ireland then for like 2 months, but then I got a job as like as a janitor in a hospital, and it was just the worst job I've ever had, and I've had every job imaginable. And then I went back to Berlin for a month, and then I was like, I need to go back to London, because I'm just pissing away. Actually, no, that's when. So then I went. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but so then when I went back to London, then I did Mike Rice's podcast, and then that went well. just as a guest, and then he was like, "That's why don't we do a podcast together? But you'll have to come to London." So I was like, "All right, fuck." So then I moved back to London. Then and I said, "Right, I know, I'll just stay here and I won't leave." And then so yeah, that was at the start of 2023. So yeah, I've been here since, and I love it now. But yeah, I don't know how
I
you
mean,
found it when you moved here, but I
no, it was. I think I agree with you. I think it was a similar sort of. What have I done to myself? Why
yeah.
did I come into this? Because I think when I started in Manchester, in within the 6 7 months, because that's how long I was going when I moved to London. But in within
Mm-hmm.
like those 6 7 months, I almost no, sorry, not 6 7 months. It was yeah, October. Yeah, so about around 6 7 months. I was like, oh, already managed to get some like paid gigs. Was
Mm,
doing some like bucket splits and stuff like this. But it
mm,
wasn't just it wasn't about the financial aspect. It was more of the fact that just like you said, you kind of knew the people. You even like you had there was a system in place where I knew that if I go from this gig to this gig to this gig, then
mm-hmm.
I can do like either 2 or 3 gigs a night, and it was just easy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it felt good. It felt really good. Yeah, I was like quite happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, many other things happened. But then I thought, yeah, I'll give London a try because I think it's is the next step.
Yeah,
And then yeah, I think for the first year here, I was just, although I was still gigging, but I was hating almost everything,
yeah, yeah.
and that's what I was gonna say, because like when you came from Berlin to London, was it easy? Was it How hard was it for you to, I guess, um, get your like foot on the door, if that's the right
Yeah.
saying, in the like it did were you able to easily go like, hey, look, this is like those are my credentials, I guess, or those are like my
Mm.
accolades, or did you kind of like have to start from scratch again? And if how did it feel for you?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much, yeah, was starting from scratch, which was like, um, again, was like like a rude awakening because in Berlin, you can, like I said, you very quickly get to a point where, and it's not really saying much, but you can get to a point where you're kind of one of the better or one of the best comics on the scene. So obviously that's, a nice feeling, and you're like, it's your ego is, and that's why I think it's good to leave, because there's some people there that are still in that scene who think they're God's gift to comedy because they're the best in that scene. But like, it doesn't mean anything. So I knew coming here was going to be a real, like, you know, a wake up call. Yes, then I moved here, and then again, like, you're just this nobody. No one gives a shit who you are. No one knows who you are. And yeah, I pretty much just started from the bottom. And I think doing the gongs and stuff, like you've done the gong shows, they helped. Um, I mean, I'm trying to think now. Yeah, like I remember like when I was moving here, um, I just everyone was like, okay, before you move here, like 2 months before you move here, you need to start emailing people. And I was like, fuck me, that's just so different than how you got spots in Berlin, like. And so for about 2 months leading up to moving here, I must have sent like 200 emails, and I was like, is this how you have to do I have to do this every 2 months? Like, so then I managed to have like a few spots lined up, um, under the guise of like, oh, I'm just visiting. So people kind of gave me, you know, people tend to kind of give you priority with
Yeah.
regards to spots when you say you're visiting. So I moved, and yeah, I just remember doing all really bad, the worst open mics, and then like I said, yeah, like me and Ano Gomez and Ridwan Hussein and the likes, like we would go and do like music open mics that didn't really take comedians, and we just go up and be like, can we do comedy? And they'd be like, all right. And then we'd go up and we just like bomb and get heckled and stuff, and it was so soul destroying. Um, and then I think, yeah, and then I think like I think it was more when I came back then at the start of 2023 was when I think I started to maybe get a foot in the door. I think I won some gongs. Yeah, I'd won some gongs, and I think the podcast maybe helped because uh, obviously, you know, Mike Rice, who I did it with, is a very dear friend of mine. But he's obviously, you know, he's blowing up. Like he's one of the best. He's one of the best in Europe. And he's like about to blow up. And I guess doing a podcast with him kind of opened doors and stuff. And then yeah, I guess just I think yeah, the gongs definitely helped. I think.
How did you get into like comedy in the first place? Like, what made you? Were you like, I don't know, a funny person?
No,
As in like forever, or like how did you come across it?
no, it was to be honest. I mean, yeah, like of all the things I could have ended up doing, like this is like the most alien, like regards to like because when I was a kid I was just so quiet and an introvert, like a wallflower, I guess, and never was to try to be funny in school. Um and then I guess like I don't know, make my friends laugh and stuff, like I didn't. And then I think with comedy, I think like I'd wanted to be in my teens. I wanted to do music, and then I went to art college as a painter, and I did that for a few years. I thought I wanted to do that, so I tried everything, and then I got to like my mid-20s. It was 25, 26, and I before that then this is mental. I did MMA for like a year and a half, and I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to do this, and then I had one
Wow.
MMA. I had one MMA fight, and I lost it, and I broke my collarbone, and I got the shit beaten out of me.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, it's on YouTube if you want to watch it. So I did that, and then I had to stop doing that because I got um, two really bad concussions, and I was basically told by a neurologist like you got to stop this shit. So I stopped, and then for like a year, I was just working in a call center, and I was like, "What the fuck am I doing?" I really, for the first time in my life, I was like, "I've actually nothing to. I had no passion. you know, nothing that I wanted to like a dream or anything." And then I think building up to that, I got really into Louis C.K. And I just thought, and I still do. I just like he was just, you know, it just blew my mind. I just got obsessed with him, and I honestly don't know when it clicked that I thought I wanted to give it a try. But yeah, I guess like around then, I realized I was like, what am I gonna do? What do I like doing? And then I realized that I liked, as gay as it sounds, I liked making my friends laugh or trying to be funny. And I thought, well, if I like doing that, then why don't I try doing it as a job, and see if I could do it as a job? Because I was like, I don't have anything else to do, and I've tried everything else, and I have nothing to lose, you know. And I just said, fuck it, yeah. And it was November 2019, I think, and then I think for like months leading up to that, I was writing stuff, and I think I went to see Louis C.K. in I think 2018 or 2017, and I was writing stuff and all these notes, and you know, and then I think yeah, it was November 2019. I remember uh, I was at home, and I don't know about when you started, but I kept making excuses to not do it. Like I know I researched all the open mics in Dublin, and so I knew when they were all on. But then every night I just make an excuse to not do it. I'd be like, oh, no, it's, you know, I've got to be up early tomorrow and I'm too tired. And then there was just one night where there was this music, like a variety open mic, comedy, poetry, music. And, I said, like, there was just one, I was like, fuck, if I don't do it tonight, I'm never going to do it. Like, I had no excuse to not do it that night. I wasn't in work the next day, whatever. Um, was like, fuck it, I'll do it tonight. And then I told my brother, my older brother, who I'm very close with, like, and he was big into Louis C.K. and stuff. And I said to him, I was like, I think I'm gonna try this. And he says, oh, I'll come with you. And I didn't want my mom to know I was going because I knew she would fucking think it was mental. Like, she wouldn't be able to understand like why I would even try that. And I knew she's going to be like, oh, here we go. Here's another fucking thing he'll be obsessed with now and then give up. Do you know what I mean? Because she'd been through it with me like over 5 different things. And she's like, oh, here we go. So we were leaving and she's like, where are you going? And then I was like, oh, fuck. And I was like, oh, I'm going to, but, I'm going to do this, stand-up comedy thing. She was like, what? She's like, you? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I mean, I guess if you want to. And then she was so confused because and then I went and I did it, and I thought it was so funny because like I thought I had 5 minutes, and then I went on stage and I got off stage and I realized that I did a minute and a half.
No way.
Yeah, because yourself, like your perception of time on stage is like so warped. You don't know how long it's only now, having been doing it for a few years, that I've now developed a sense of time that I'm like, okay, I know roughly how long I've been on stage. Whereas back then it was just like, I did a minute and a half and I got off and I was like, how long did I do? And my brother was like, you're a minute and a half. And I was like, fuck. And it was, I don't know why, it was fine. Like it went red, like it was whatever. And then, just for whatever reason, then I just, I was like, no, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this now and I'm just not going to stop. I'll just do this now. This is going to be the thing. Because I was like, I was 26 and I was just like, I felt very aware of time passing, and getting, even though 26 is still very young, and I was like, no, this is going to be the thing now. I'll pick this and then I'll do it. I just won't stop. And and then fucking COVID. Fucking 4 months later, fucking COVID started, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? But thankfully,
Well, so what's your mom's I guess perception now? Like,
now,
has she seen you more recently as well? Like, what?
yeah. So like now she's, to be honest, like I think at the time she was kind of like, she was just worried. I guess she's like, she just didn't know how you became a comedian, because with acting and stuff, like my brother's an actor, so like with acting, you go to college, you learn how to act, you get cast in movies, you get cast in plays. And then with musicians, like you start a band, you go play gigs. My mom was just kind of like, she'd just see these comedians on TV, and she was just kind of like, how would you even do that? I was like, well, you go and you do these gigs, and I had to explain to her, and I was like, it takes 10 years, and you got your shit for 10 years, and she was just scared. I think for me, she was like, I don't know, like what kind of a life is this going to lead to? But then I think I've been through so much shit, mentally and in my life, and then I think she just saw that this made me happy, and it gave me a purpose, and then she was like, you know what, if it makes you happy and it gives you a purpose, go and do it. And the same with my dad. My dad was the same. And then I think they only really started to take it seriously so I was living in Berlin, and living kind of like, it was like I was gigging every night and hustling and stuff, but like it was kind of, I think it was only really when I moved here and then I started to achieve these little things. I think when I won the competition in Berlin, they were kind of like, because they were kind of like, oh, maybe he actually has a chance of, if he's winning something, even though it was just something in Berlin, if he's won something, maybe he's decent. So when I was able to tell them, I was like, oh, I won this thing, I think they were kind of like, oh, okay, maybe he might do well at this thing. And then I moved here, and then I just think the more I did here, um, and I was telling them, oh, I won this thing and blah 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 at this gong show, and I was able to tell them about gigs that I was getting and club, and then I think now they're like, they totally get it, and they're like, um, yeah, they get it, like they get it now, like this is my job, or and it's it has the potential to be as much of a paying job as it would be if I was to have a normal some other job, because I think that they're both of them, they're just so happy that I'm pursuing a passion and a dream, and it makes me happy. But obviously when you're a parent, you're worried about your kid being homeless and not having, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So I
for
think that
sure.
was their fear. But once they saw that, oh, I was making money from it, and that they were like, oh, okay, he'll be fine, but yeah, like, don't get me wrong, like it's only now that things I'm still broke as shit. Like, I'm still extremely poor. I steal food all the time. I don't pay for the train, but I can pay my rent now at least. But yeah, like there was a period of time there when I first moved here, and then I'd say up until like October last year, where I literally, like, I would be like 2 months behind rent, and I was stealing food, and fucking that was so stressful. Like, that was a period of time where, like, fuck, like I was borrowing money from everyone. Like, I just had like a list on my phone of like everyone I could borrow money from that I knew would give me money, and then I had to cross them off the list.
Yeah.
Um, and then I exhausted all my options there, because I mean yeah, it's just the thing with like getting a job is that I always thought it was an advantage to not be tied down to somewhere. It meant like being that free, um, allowed me to like go and do a gig at the drop of a hat. If someone was like, "Oh, can you be in?" Um, First of all, to have all your evenings free, so you can go gig as much as you want, and then, um, also to just have any day off, so that if someone was like, "Oh, can you go do this gig in fucking wherever?" Like, "Oh yeah, I can do it," and you can just be reliable, and you can just be everywhere at once in a weird way. And then even now it's like, it means I can go to Ireland, and then I can go to the Fringe, or I can go here, and I don't have to ask for time off. Um, and like during the day, it wasn't as if, you know, during the days I was doing fuck all. It was like, since I started the podcast, like I was producing that, so I'd be spending all my day, sort of most days just editing that and making clips for social media, and you know trying to be as productive as I did as much as I could to justify not being in it, not having a proper job. um Try to be productive, do sketches or whatever, but I mean, I had a few jobs since I've moved here. I got fired from one of them, and
How did that
uh
happen?
I was just Ridwan Hussein got me the job. It was as a property inventory clerk, where you go to properties and sort of check the condition of the property, so that the person leaving gets their deposit back or whatever. And I just it was tough. Like, I am, to for want of a better, like, I am a bit retarded when it comes to like, I don't like I just my brain is a bit fucked, like, for various reasons, and I found it really hard to keep up with the workload. And then I think they were just weren't happy with me, and then all came to a head one day where I had I had just been ignoring like two teeth that were like really painful for like a year. I just didn't have the money to go and do them, get them looked at, and then it just came to a head where they were so bad. Like, all of my teeth were so painful. I almost got like my housemate to like pull them out with a pliers. Like, one of them, And I was in work one day, and it got so bad that I rang 111 to see if I could see an emergency dentist after work. And they said, "Oh, okay." And they said, "What are you doing for pain relief?" And I said, "Oh, I've been taking, ibuprofen and Panadol or whatever, paracetamol." And they go, "How much have you taken?" And I told them, and they were like, "Oh, you've taken an overdose. You have to go to hospital." But I was fine. Like, you know what I mean? It was technically an overdose, but you'd have to take way more for it. So I had to go to hospital. So I rang my boss and I said, "I have to leave. I can't. I have to stop working." And he was just
Yeah.
like, "This is not feasible." So then I got sacked from that. And then I walked dogs for a while. That was fine. But then I found with working, like, you'd be so tired. And I know there's people out there who have jobs and kids who are able to do this. I just couldn't. I'd go to gigs. I'd be so fucking tired that I wouldn't, I was just going up and, you know, murmuring into the fucking microphone and just getting through it, as opposed to, like, being actually in it and having the energy to do it. And so, yeah, thankfully I've been in a position for the last, while that I don't have to, I can survive off of, what I have. But yeah, I'm still, very poor, but it's, I can do it. I can pay my rent, which is the main thing. Like, so.
I mean, yeah, it's a small victories, man. I feel like it's such a in this situation. I don't know. It's so, yeah. You gotta look at, I guess, and it's also, it's a very interesting way to look at it in the first place, where you're like, this is kind of the commitments that you have to do,
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying. I see the amount of times when, I don't know, you get a day, like, throughout the day job, you have to stay late for work, or
Mm-hmm.
even just like you said it now. I sometimes, luckily, I'm at the point now where I went part-time on my day job,
Mm-hmm.
but even then, sometimes, you finish the set, like, I don't know, 7-8 hours of work, and
Mm-hmm.
then you got to work for another 3 hours, and
Yeah.
but then when you go on stage, it's you do you make that time count, because, like you said, are
Yeah.
you just going through emotion? Because I although, again, I very much feel like, I want to believe, I'm trying my best to become a full-time comedian, and, like, to make this, to make a living out of it, like a consistent
Mm-hmm.
sort of living. But it's not necessarily like every other job, like, you can't just be there,
Mm.
I think, with, again, some of the things I do during the day, or jobs I had, as in, like, day jobs, you
Mm.
kind of, as long as you're there, it's fine, you
Yeah.
still get paid. While with comedy, kind of, you have to entertain yourself. I feel like the amount of, what's the word, awareness that you have to have. I think,
Mm-hmm.
even, when you were talking about, because I do think about, like, when I record, or, like, when I do the podcast as well,
Mm.
you have to constantly pay attention, and you have to constantly
Mm.
be involved in it, just
Yeah.
to make sure that you make the most of it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, how do you do that? Everyone does it in a different way, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's no, I don't know. I feel like it's such a, it's not a right and wrong thing. It's just the way it is, and you gotta see it for a reason. It makes sense, because, again, the amount of times that I either, sometimes I had to, like, cancel gigs because I would get, like, burned out, and I wouldn't know whether, is it
Yeah.
burnout because of the day job, is it burnout because of comedy, is it, like, what is it?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
does go on?
No, I just, I remember for the first time ever canceling a spot, like, ever. I canceled a spot for not being, like, I canceled spots in the past for, like, being really sick or having COVID. Like, I got COVID a few times and I had to cancel gigs, obviously. But for the first time ever, I remember it was back during the summer, when I was doing that job that Ridwan got me. For the first time ever, I cancelled a spot because I was so tired from just work, and I was like, I need to go home and sleep. And I cancelled the spot, and I thought, this isn't good. If I'm cancelling the spot, and it wasn't, it was just some open mic. Like, it would have been fine to not do it. It was fine to not do it, but in my mind, I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like, if I'm cancelling spots because I'm so tired from work, then I can't. This is not feasible. So yeah, it just be so yeah, I was just so fucking tired. And it's like on top of that, like I do have, um, I've got health stuff and like mental health stuff that I um it would be exacerbated by stress and fatigue and stuff. And um, I found that definitely like taking that stress away of like having a job definitely helped. Obviously, then there was the stress of not having money, but I'd rather the stress of not having money than having the stress of like fucking trying to juggle a job, a podcast, stand up, fucking whatever. You know what I mean? So it's madness. Like,
You gotta, yeah, I think again you gotta do what feels right for you, or like what's more important for you. I
yeah,
think you said it right, where again you have a different type of stress, which you know to some people, I think even to me, it's much more difficult,
yeah,
but at least I think it's one of those things where is it worth the struggle, is the
mm,
struggle, no, sorry, is the struggle worth it, when you look at the main goal. But I was going to ask you about your, because you were talking about like how like your brother, one of your brothers is an actor, your parents, being quite like, again, very supportive. But then
mm.
were they like artistic people as well, or like how is it, are you like the first generation of like Moriarty that's um given arts a
Well, so I mean, my dad is that my mom's a nurse. Um, yeah, so my mom's a nurse, but my dad was he's an English and history teacher, but he he wrote like he when he was I think my age he wrote a book that got published and then he wanted to be a writer, I think, and then but then he had kids and stuff, and he was like, right, I have to fucking. Then he went and he, had to be, got a job as a teacher. But then, um, he became, he started painting, so he was like a painter there for like, uh, I think he started painting when he was in his like late 30s or 40s, and he just started painting, and then he plays music now, and he's in like a jazz sort of band and stuff. So I guess he's kind of very creative. Um, and then yeah, my brother's an actor, and then so yeah, maybe that's where the creative side of things came from. I don't know, um, but yeah, and then the art side of things, I just ended up going to art college because I was just good at draw. I don't know how I was just when I was a kid. I was just good at drawing and painting and
oh
stuff, um, and just from a young age, everyone's just like, "Oh yeah, you'll end up going to art college." So then when I got to the point of like the point at which you decided what you're going to do after school, I was just kind of like, well, I had no interest in anything. I just fucking, at 15, 16, up until that point, I was kind of like good at school, and I still had it in my head that maybe I'd go and I'd, maybe, I was thinking maybe architecture or something like that. But, I think after like 15, 16, I just got really into music. It's the classic thing. I got into music. I found my group of friends that I still have to this day, and alcohol and weed and stuff. And then at that point, I was like, oh, I'm fuck all that stuff, and like as in having like a job. And I think at that point, that my parents around that time, I think my parents were like, right, they came to it. They accepted that. All right, this fucker is going to go and probably do something stupid as a job. So I think they're always ready for me to be like, no, I'm actually going to go and do something like stand up, and yeah, so that's with the creative, it's a funny thing, like the creative thing, because you do forget that like it's because you're thinking, yeah, like the comedy is just you know you're telling jokes, but then people always joke about comedy not being an art form or whatever. And I always think that it is an art form, but it's the lowest one in with regard. But then I think that it just gets that reputation because there's jokes about farts and cum and shit and fingering your dad, and it's very hard to justify that as when it's done by like great comedians and the best of all time or whatever. Like you can see that it's art, but I guess at the lowest levels when you're starting out, it's hard. But then you just it's only recently that you're like you do remember that it is a very creative thing. Like you are sitting down and you're writing, like you're writing stories, you're writing, and there is a creativity to it, obviously, which you can kind of forget that it's a creative pursuit because you're just, you're just like, oh, you're just doing jokes, like, but yeah, at the end of the day, you are creating something. It's, maybe I'm talking out my arse there, but,
No, I think it's good points. And you were saying that you're still close with your mates, from
mm,
high school. Like, what was it like? Have you done comedy in front of them? Like, how do they find your comedy? Because you do have quite a bit of storytelling, right? So how do they find? Yeah, I guess like does it come as a surprise? The analogies that you come up with, or the punchlines that you come up with. What was that like?
so yeah, I think even like when they found out I was doing stand up, I think even then, same thing with my parents. They're kind of like, "Oh, fucking here we go!" Like this is the fourth thing that he said he's gonna do. And how long will this last?
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, no, this is it. This is the one. So I think they came to see me when I was maybe 2 months in, and it was horrible. One of them was was heckling, and I was fuck. I was like, I'm never letting
Oh
them
my
come again.
god.
And I didn't let them come see me because I was in Berlin, so I didn't let them come see me. And then when I moved back to Ireland at the end of 2022, I was doing a gig. I got an audition spot at like a club there, like one of the best clubs there. And they found out that I was doing it, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna come." And I was like, "Fuck!" And I just said, "Listen, if you're gonna like, don't heckle, don't sit near the front, don't get too drunk." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." So then four of them came, and I've just never felt like that pressure in my life because like if you go in front of them and then you start bombing and then they're like, "Oh, this is the thing you want to, you're shit." Like, why would you?
Oh god.
So I did, and thankfully it went well. And it was like I wanted to show them like, oh, I am good at this thing. And then it went well enough that they kind of saw that. And then I think it was at that point they were like, oh, maybe he could do this as a job. And but yeah, I think most of the time I think most of them have probably muted me on Instagram because they're probably sick of seeing my face every day with some dumb podcast clip or something. But I know, yeah, I'm very lucky, like with the friends I have. They're very, supportive and they respect it now, I think. But I think definitely at the start they just thought I was, this was my new fucking dumb pursuit that I was gonna give up after a few years. But yeah, now they respect it. Yeah, they respect it now. When I guess which is good. Yeah, and
So how's because you've done quite a obviously a bit of a change, right, with the podcast,
yeah,
from doing it with Mike,
mm-hmm,
and now is the chief cast,
yeah.
which looks great.
I know some man.
I'm a big fan of the reels as well. You're very that's the thing. You're very active on social media, and
Yeah,
it's again they're funny. They're really good.
cheers, bro.
So yeah, what's your plan? What's your plan with that? Are you planning? Because loads of people they do like live streams of
Mm.
the. Were you thinking about that, or is there anything that you want to, give us like a peek into future wise, or no? You've not thought that far yet.
Well, yeah, it's more about now, like, um, so yeah, like when I was doing the thing with Mike, it was unfortunate that we had to stop doing that, but he just, he got so, he's at a point now where he's blowing up and he's doing tours and stuff, and then he has another podcast with that's extremely successful. So, he was burning out, so we had to kind of pick one thing to get rid of. And unfortunately, ours was the thing. And so then at that point, it was about like, all right, how many of the listeners from that can I retain for myself? I think initially, I think like at the time, just when we pulled the plug, I think, we were, maybe at like 1,500 listeners a week. And then it was funny to see like, okay, so then the next week, then when it was just me and John Sharp, which maybe wasn't the smartest choice of having as a first guest. But I thought it was funny to just have him on. So in that week, you could see there was just a massive drop already because people were like, no, I was listening for either Mike and Rob, or Mike and myself. So then it dropped, and then you could see it like every few weeks it would drop by like 100, 200. So now it's gotten to a point where, it's starting to, the drop off is plateauing. And I think now I'm at a point where I possibly have retained maybe, 300 or 400 people, which isn't much, but it's enough that you're not doing all this work for nothing. Like there is actually people out there that are enjoying it. And yeah, like with regards to like doing live stuff, and I think like right now it's just like I want to build up the listenership by a substantial amount to the point where you'd be able to pull off something like that. But yeah, at the moment it's just about yourself, about consistency, and unfortunately, yeah, like the clips, the podcast clip thing is like it's a necessary evil, like and yeah, like you'd spend hours working on this clip and then you post it and the thing fucking dies on its arse and you're like, is there any benefit to doing this? But you have to keep doing it. And so I think now at the moment the only goal for it is to just slowly build up the listenership and the Patreon, because the Patreon is like that's that can become a source of income. Like I know comedians who like are able to they use a Patreon to pay their rent, which that's the dream. So right now I'm like, right, I want to get this to a point where it's build up this Patreon to where it's like, right, this can be my source of income, and then everything, I don't have to worry about anything else. So that's basically it now. It's just being consistent and just trying to make sure that every week it's good, and just trying to make sure that it's funny and that it's which can be hard, but yeah, that's it really. Yeah, it's just because with podcasts and stuff, I think it's just consistency. It's just like it just has to be every week. Yeah, and I remember I got a DM from someone who, because with the new podcast, like when I did it with Mike, the podcast would just start and it'd be the two of us chatting away. But with this new thing, because it's just, I have Hamish now, who I live with, Hamish Shepherd. I don't know if you know him. He's very very funny. New Zealand, a comedian from New Zealand. So he kind of like is like a what's the guy, like a third mic kind of sidekick kind of thing now, where he does most of the episodes with me. But at the start it was just me, so I do an intro at the start of each episode, like, oh, today's guest is blah 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 blah, and I got a DM from someone being like, oh, I'm going to stop listening because during your intros, you're yawning and you sound bored and you don't want to do it. And she's like, I just don't. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is how I sound. Like, this is like, do you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm yawning, I'm fucking tired. And she was like, oh, it just sounds like you couldn't be arsed. And, which couldn't be more opposite to the truth. Like, do you know what I mean? If anything, I maybe care a bit fucking too much. So that was weird. That was so good riddance there. I guess she stopped listening. So,
God,
yeah, it's odd. Like, but I mean, it's cool. Like to have some people, like someone the other day I got a package in the post from someone who listens, and it was like a poster they'd made, like a painting they'd made
Oh,
for the podcast and stuff. So yeah, that's mad. Like that's cool. That you're like, ah, fuck it. If there's at least one person who's that sort of enjoying it that much, that you're like, all right, I guess there's something here, and we'll just fucking keep doing it. But yeah,
you said like such an amazing thing about earlier, where you're like, oh, you're working on again, like putting a podcast together, and then I feel like our journeys were like so different to the point where you did again. The one with Mike, things are like number wise was good, and now
mm,
now it's good as well, but it's just different, right? So now you're
mm,
kind of like again, you're trying to figure out where do you stand, or either on your own or like with your new type of guests. While I
yeah,
think with mine, I remember when I started, I was like, oh, nobody's gonna listen to this, and then you
mm,
kind of get to like, oh, okay, cool, that's like, again, 100 people,
yeah,
and or even before that, I remember on the first day where I was like, oh, 7 people downloaded, and I was like, that's cool,
mm,
and then it just builds up, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, it kind of makes sense, or like it makes sense, but it's not just there, it's actually people are listening, people
mm,
are getting involved with it. But yeah, no, so I agree with that. I feel like it's such a journey, and it's so interesting, and it's so sometimes is, I think, soul crushing as well, because I know
yeah,
sometimes, like you said, when I tried like to make like sound clips and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is getting like 12 views, and
yeah,
like, why have I spent half an hour to try
yeah.
and
It's that's a bit soul destroying. Like yeah, even with like doing sketches and stuff. But like I do sketches with my housemate Hamish, and like we would put a lot of effort into them. And I mean, we enjoy the process of coming up with ideas and shooting it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, like you put all this work in, and they can bomb. But I think it's always just been about with the podcast and then with sketches. It's just like, and I think it's something that you'd hear famous comedians say, or successful comedians, where they're like, you just have to kind of do what you think is funny, and don't try and cater your jokes or your sketches or whatever, or your podcasts, to what you think people will find funny. You gotta just do what you think is funny and trust that other people will tap into that. Because I think we're like the podcast with me and Mike, why there was a massive drop off, I think, is that the dynamic changed. And I think like with me and Mike, there was a kind of a dynamic of like, I was kind of like, I would be the one who would maybe say the more maybe dodgier stuff, and he'd kind of be the straight man and kind of like, oh, you can't say that, and kind of sort of rein me in and whatever. And then I think he liked to kind of, I guess, dance the line a bit more between, with regards to like saying something that's a bit too far. Like that's more his style, is to kind of like dance on that line a bit. So then once he left, then I didn't really, that person wasn't there. So now this new thing is like way more offensive. I mean, there's shit that's on there that would ruin me if I was to ever get anywhere. And yeah, and then I think a lot of people probably stopped listening because they were like, "Oh, this is way too offensive," and um, and way more disgusting, and way more. It's so funny because I had I don't know if you know George Wheeler. I had my friend George Wheeler, and he comes on every now and again, and he's homeless at the moment, so he's like sleeps in hostels and stuff. And he'd come on and he'd tell these stories about, you know, just disgusting stories, and I get DMs from people being like, literally being like, please stop having him on. I have to turn it off when he starts talking about stuff. And so yeah, I think I lost people through that. Like that, it's a bit more untethered and just being really filthy and offensive and with the joke. Like yeah, so but then yeah, part of you is like, oh fuck, like what am I doing if I'm losing all these people? But then you just have to remind yourself, you're like, well, fuck, I think this is funny, and I'm having a good time. So, you have to stick to your guns, I guess, with that. That you're like, um, yeah, you're like, if I'm having fun and if I think it's funny, um, then that's the main thing, and then you just gotta have faith that other people will, um, enjoy it, and they'll stick with it, and yeah, it's a nice thing when you know that there's some people listening to you. As you know, it's yeah, it's nice that you yeah, it's a nice feeling. Yeah.
Well, now before we depart, just want to ask you, where do people, check out your like content? Where you most active? Well, again, where can people slide in your DMs?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. Rob does comedy, which is the most generic fucking uh, comedy comedian handle on social media, and then the podcast is called Chiefcast. So, but yeah, it's not for everyone. Um, and yeah, so that's Chiefcast is on everything, YouTube and Spotify and all the usual places. Yeah, and yeah. So if you wanna check that shit out, that's where you'll find me. The
Well,
filth and the
look, I think, like you said, you gotta. I agree with you about the not catering for what you think people want. It's rather
mm,
than, oh, I think this is good, or like, I think this is not necessarily, because it's not about being good or bad. I think it's more about, this is what I want to make, and
mm,
now you're just, do you like it? Yes, stick around for
yeah,
it. If not, fair enough.
yeah,
You can't.
yeah,
I don't think you can like force people into a room and lock the door and just be like, you got to enjoy this now.
yeah,
But yeah, I agree. I think it's a very healthy approach as well. I find it, because I think even from even comedy writing style,
mm,
where you're like, it's not about what someone might think. It's about, what do I think about this, and
yeah,
then, do I work hard to make other people see how is it, or do I actually work hard to make people who like me
yeah,
come on board? Anyway,
yeah, 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 for
lovely
sure.
to talk to you, and thank you so much for taking
Likewise,
the
man.
time.
Oh no, thanks
And
for having me on, man. I enjoyed that.
perfect. We'll catch up
Yeah,
later.
yeah, sounds good, man.
Take it easy.
Take it easy, bro. Cheers.
What do you think? Was it good? I think it was pretty good. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you did so too. And yeah, you'll hear from me again next week, same time, same place. I mean, it depends on where you're listening to the podcast. It might be a different place if you're not listening to it in the same place that you're now, but pretty much same time, or at the same date of the week, which is a Tuesday. Again, we're back to the normal schedule. And yeah, from me, Pickle and Sarma, thank you and goodbye. Oh yeah, stay skillful. Sorry, forgot that part. Bye now.